The Cardinals and the Marlins have a war of attrition in Miami, with the Marlins coming away with the series win on yet another walk-off. We're going to break down this series. We're going to talk about the injuries and who the Marlins might be willing to move on from at the trade deadline and what it would cost to get some of these guys away from them. This is a special Locked on Cardinals, Locked on Marlins crossover.
You are Locked on Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals and Marlins fans. I am JD Hafford, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked on Cardinals, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter, X, at JD Sports Radio. You can follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. Representing the fish from Miami, we've got our Locked on Marlins host, Peter Pratt, who you can find on Twitter, X, at Miami Marlins_UK. We want to thank those of you who make Locked on Cardinals and Locked on Marlins your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find both of us on YouTube. Make sure you stop on by, like, subscribe, and comment. That way you're interacting with us, and you get the visuals of what's going on with these faces behind the voices that you might be hearing on the audio version of it all. Make sure you hit that notification button so you know when the new episodes are posted. Today's episode is being brought to you by PrizePicks. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports is PrizePicks. You go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and you use the code, which is all lowercase, in case you didn't know, LockedOnMLB, for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, Peter, great to finally get to chat with you. For those of you who are just exclusively Locked on Cardinals listeners and don't know, Peter's not in the United States at the moment. In fact, he doesn't live here at all. He actually lives abroad. Peter, tell him your backstory real quick for the people who aren't aware.
Yeah, JD, thanks, buddy. And this should be a fun episode, not only because of the way the series went, but the Cardinals could have been my team, but people are thinking, how the hell is this British guy hosting Locked on Marlins? What the hell has happened? Are there no fans of the Marlins in Miami? I'll pause there for a second. That might be true, but secondly to that, I started following baseball in. Go on, mate.
I was going to say, it's a pleasure to have you on here, man, and finally get to chat with you. And you've been a baseball fan for since you were a wee, right?
No. I started following baseball 2016. I went over to Miami on holiday and discovered baseball, discovered the Marlins in 2016. And I was like, I think I like this game. My son was born in 2017. So I was like, right, I'm going to do the night feeds while watching the games. I was like, this is perfect. And I really heavily got into the Marlins then. And 2018, I said, I'm going to start a podcast, start my own podcast, few British Marlins fans covering the Marlins. And then fast forward 7 years, and here we are, Locked on Marlins, talking about the Marlins every day, your team every day. So yeah, it's been a fun story so far.
Yeah, great journey. Who was somebody that was on the Marlins that caught your eye when you first started watching them? Did you have a favorite one? Because like growing up, I was a big Ozzie Smith fan, who was the great shortstop for the Cardinals. Who was it for the Marlins that caught your eye?
For me, it was Stanton. Like, I was at the game I went to, it was a Diamondbacks game, and Stanton just pulverized one like into the, the what was the monument or the whatever it was that was spinning around all the time.
Home run architecture that was out there.
The sculpture.
Yeah,
he just pulverized one of the sculpture. I was like, man, this dude is incredible. So I went straight to the store. The store within the store within the ballpark effectively, and bought a jersey straight away. Just put it on and went, that's it. I am in as a Stanton fan, as a Marlins fan. What I didn't know that day, I mean, I didn't know who he was at that point, but luckily enough, Jose Fernandez was pitching for the Marlins that day. It was just coincidence, and I didn't know who any of these guys were. I just said to my wife, let's go to watch the baseball, see what it's like. And she was like, okay. I don't think she was quite as pumped, but coincidentally, Fernandez is going, Stanton's there, home run, the Marlins win, Realmuto, Ozuna, it's that kind of core, right? It was a fun group, actually, just 2 pitches away.
Yes,
So
imagine having them all. Imagine what that team would be right now if you had them all together again. I mean, the way that Ozuna has had a rejuvenation in Atlanta, Yelich is finally healthier in Milwaukee, and then of course Stanton doing his stuff with the Yankees, JT with Philadelphia. Unfortunately, Fernandez, rest in peace, not with us anymore. But yeah, it was an exciting time to be a Marlins fan, so I could see why you got attracted to it. Last year was an exciting time for the fans, and then this year has been a bit of a bummer. But this series ended up working out for you quite well, Peter, because the Marlins and the Cardinals, they just had a very grueling series in Miami. It was back and forth. You had extra innings twice, and then you had back-to-back walk-off wins for Miami, including today's game. The Cardinals came out on top. It was 12 innings in game 1. Marlins do it in 10 in game 2. And then today, Otto Lopez gets that walk-off single. And my biggest question for you, Peter, as somebody who watches the Marlins day in and day out, what is different about this series compared to what you've seen from the team all season, where they've been one of the worst teams in baseball? And you look at the standings and you're like, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk. Cardinals are coming in with a little bit of momentum. The Marlins, I think, lost 5 in a row. And the Cardinals are like, all right, cool. We got a team that's kind of laying down for everybody right now. That is not what I saw whatsoever in this series, man. These guys kept fighting every single game until the very end. And I was very impressed with some of the talent that the Marlins have. What's going on with this team? How are they so far down in the standings?
Yeah, do you know what? Looking at this series, it was very much like the 23 Marlins just like reappeared out of nowhere. And the only thing I can put my finger on, to be honest with you, is I wonder if there's extra juice for Skip Schumaker. I wonder if Skip has like lit a fire under these guys, and because maybe it means more for Skip. I don't know, but for this series, they got absolutely spanked by the Nats over the weekend. They were terrible. Against the Nats. They just fully handled them. 2 runs in 3 games. It was disgraceful, to be honest with you. So to have this Marlins turn up in this series, like, the only thing I can think of is Skip as like, guys, I know we've been crap, but we need to perform. These are the series that matter for me. So I don't know. Maybe the guys have just rallied around Skip. Maybe there's extra meaning. I don't know. But it was scrappy Marlins, finding ways to win, walk-offs. Like, it was 2023 again. Not a great side, but they find ways to win. So it's fun to see. I mean, it's been a tough year, as you mentioned, tough year for the Marlins fans. Like, from a playoff berth to starting pretty much 0-13 or something crazy, like trade Arias in the first month, they're signaling to the fans, we're cooked after 1 month, which is really not the signal you're looking for from the new front office, right?
No, and then that is not the signal I got from these guys in this series, because the one thing that was really talked about was the lack of offense with Miami so far this year, where they had scored 1 or 2 runs a ton of their games so far. So it wasn't the offense that you really had to worry about. It was getting enough runs against them to get the victory. And then outside of this game on Wednesday, both teams put up a ton of runs. They went to extra innings to tack on a few extra ones there. But at the same time, there was a lot of hitting going on. And that was something I noticed from the Marlins, too. I mean, they were just smacking the ball all over the place. You had a lot of the power in game 2. But that first game, there was, certainly a lot of base hits for each team on both sides. And, the Marlins just when you watch what I just saw over the last 3 games, it's hard to believe where they are in the standings. Just the grit and the fight that I saw from them. The thing that I did see a lot of little small mistakes, like the error on Berger today at third base. You're kind of like, oh, I can see how this is how you've lost a couple of games maybe. Definitely. But this team was able to fight back and get back into every single game that they fell behind in, and they end up winning 2 of 3 in this series. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this particular series in a bit. We want to talk more about Skip Schumaker. I want to get Peter's thoughts. I want to get your thoughts on what you saw from the Cardinals in this series overall, because it's the Marlins, sure, have been a disappointing team as well. The Cardinals have also been a disappointing team in a lot of people's eyes. So I want to get your take on what you saw from them. And then a little bit later, we'll get into the trade talk. As you mentioned, Luis Arias was gone right away. I'm sure there's going to be other guys on the roster that teams are interested in, and they're going to come calling, Peter. So I want to get your thoughts on what might go down at the trade deadline as well, as we continue this Locked on Cardinals and Locked on Marlins crossover. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and a whole lot more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, that means the part is guaranteed to fit your ride each and every time, or you get your money back. And because with eBay Motors, they're not interested in you burning rubber or not burning cash. They want you to be burning rubber. They want you out in your automobile. They want you having fun this summer. That's what it's all about. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's very easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Just keep your ride or die alive at ebay.com/motors. That's eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. What you do is you just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With PrizePicks, you could turn $10 into $1,000. That would be nice, right? You can, summer vacations coming up. Might need that extra cash, and you can do it in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a PrizePicks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. It's very quick. It's very easy to set up. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then you're locked in. They've got promotions for you that have got you covered every week, from lowering select players' stats projections on Tuesday, which would increase your chance of getting a win, to also getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. And there's no better way to cash in on all that Cardinals and Marlins knowledge that you got going on up there in your noggin than with PrizePicks. Just add your favorite players from the diamond, whether it's Cardinals, whether it's the Marlins, or any other teams that you follow, to your PrizePicks lineups all season long. Strikeouts, RBIs, home runs, stolen bases, you take your pick. There's tons of stuff to choose from, and you go more or less and add them to your PrizePicks lineup today. So if you're interested, download the app. Do it now. Do it today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB, for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and have to turn down the volume because everybody keeps shouting at you? We know it sucks. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. And it's now streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Remember, you can catch every pitch of either the Cardinals or the Marlins hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Cardinals or Marlins. And thank you guys for making Locked On Cardinals and Locked On Marlins your first listen every day. Leave your comments on YouTube and on Twitter X. Hit me or Peter up. We're happy to chat with you. We're nice fellows. Well, we're more than happy to talk some ball with you. Peter Pratt from Locked On Marlins, JD Haffer from Locked On Cardinals. We're talking about the series that just went down with the Marlins and the Cardinals. Marlins with another walk-off win in the 9th inning today. We talked a little bit about the Marlins and how maybe, Skip Schumaker revenge series, if you will, got them pumped up a little bit. As somebody from the outside watching the Cardinals in this series, Peter, what were your thoughts on what you saw from the team? And is this a team that, in your opinion, is close enough to be a playoff contending type of team?
Yeah, that is the really interesting question at this point. When you look at this third wildcard spot, for example, it is so open. I mean, it's mid-June still, so there's time to go, right? But man, oh man, the Marlins are cooked, the Rockies are cooked. But beyond that, everyone's in the hunt. And I think that I kind of like that in many ways. Like, a lot of people maybe, hey, 2 wildcards was better, 3's too many, etc. But I must say, all these fan bases are fully locked in at this point. Everyone's tuned in. They think they can win. We're going to get to the deadline. There may not be many sellers, so this could be a good market for the Marlins to operate within. But
That's a very good point, because when they're, supply and demand, right?
There you go. Price goes up, baby. So,
Yeah.
I think, the Cardinals are just in that group, and that group is sizable, right? Where, there's a lot of rosters that look like 500 rosters at this point, to be honest with you. And that's kind of where my head's at for a lot of these clubs is, what are they going to do? Are they going to deviate? Are they gonna push some chips in? Some of them are maybe dealing with injuries. Like, are they going to get guys back? There's a lot that can go on, but that's for me what I'm really interested in is who really puts the pedal down and thinks 500 is not enough. We're going to go like last year with the Marlins. They kind of re-energized themselves with Berger and Bell at the deadline. They added Robertson. It didn't really work out, but the intention was there, and it gave them that little surge and got them over the top actually to get into the postseason. So the Cardinals group to me looks fine. I think they need a little bit of pitching help. I think considering this Marlins offense came alive against them, that's probably a poor indicator about where the Cardinals pitching is a little bit. I know today effectively was a glorified bullpen game, so hard to judge. But, I think, Lynn labored, I would say. I think that's probably
that's a nice way to put it. Yes, labored.
Kind way of saying it for Lance Lynn. He definitely labored a bit. So, I know we're going to talk about maybe trade options, but I think for the last couple of years, frankly, we've talked about a blockbuster Marlins Cardinals deal. And for me, this feels like the optimal time for a blockbuster. I mean, maybe it isn't a blockbuster, but it feels like it's time to dust off those trades. It's been a while. It's been a while. We're overdue. So I think we could certainly see something happening this deadline, I would say.
Yeah, when you brought up injuries that happened, and how about today's bullpen game out of nowhere, really? So Kyle Gibson, who was on the bereavement list over the last 3 days, had left the team because I believe it was because there was a death. I don't know if it was in the family or it was a friend or something to that effect, but that's why he was gone. Was still scheduled the entire time to make the start. And then in warmups today, he had some tightness going on in his back. They decided, all right, let's not push it. Let's just move on, and we'll do our best with what we've got today, which is why you didn't see Kyle Gibson out there, who's been one of their best pitchers and one of the better pitchers in the National League. So that kind of screwed the Cardinals right off the bat, and you saw how that worked out with Matthew Liberatore giving up not 1 but 2 home runs to the first 2 hitters of the game. They only scored 3 runs in the whole game, so that was kind of a big deal. Where all of a sudden Matthew Liberatore, about a half hour before the game starts, like, "You're starting, by the way. Go get loosened up." So that didn't work out so well in the Cardinals' favor. And then the other injury was later in the game with Nolan Arenado taking a pitch off of his. So he's a right-handed hitter. And he was, going to kind of check swing there, and the ball hits him on the tip of the right elbow, which is his back elbow. And then he goes down, he crumbles down, and obviously the elbow's a sensitive spot. There's not a lot of meat there. You could tell how the way the trainer was working on him, and it felt like he was like trying to get feeling back into his arm and his hands there, because you get the buzzes going when you get hit on the funny bone there. And then when he got up and he's walking away and they're taking him off the field, and he's clearly coming out of the game, he's like limping a little bit too. And everybody's like, well, what the hell happened there? You go back on the replay, it hits him in the elbow, and then it deflects and hits him right in the family jewels, Peter. Like, got him right in the spot you never, ever, ever want to get hit in when you're a man. And maybe that was why he was limping. We're not entirely sure, but if you get hit just right in that situation, in that spot, you're not going to be walking normal for a little while. So that could have been the issue there with the limping there. After the game, right elbow contusion is the only injury update that they gave. He's going to go in for some more testing and stuff, but that would be. We're hoping he's okay, and it's just one of those things where he took it on a bad spot, but we're hoping it's not something more severe, because Nato was starting to come back to life a little bit. Had a few hits in this series and was starting to look more like himself defensively, and to lose him right when you're getting a guy like Wilson Contreras back for the Cardinals would be quite the blow. To have him go down right when you're getting another big gun back. So we'll keep you updated on the latest on what's going on with Nolan Arenado. As far as Kyle Gibson goes, I would just assume that he would make his next start. I don't know. They got Andre Palante going in tomorrow's game against the Giants at Rickwood, which is that special game that they're doing. But they're not going to just push Kyle back one day. So they're going to move on, and I would assume he'll just continue in the rotation and pick up his next spot. But obviously, we'll keep you posted on anything new with that. Was there anybody on the Cardinals that you were more impressed with in this series? Was there anybody who stood out to you that you were like, I could see him in a fish uniform? Is there anybody you liked?
Do you know what? This series, it felt like everyone up and down this Cardinals lineup hit a home run. Like it wasn't just one or two guys doing the damage, like the usual guys where you kind of go, all right, what's Goldie doing? What's Arenado doing? Yeah. It felt like everyone chipped in, and there's some guys there that I haven't seen a ton of. Wynn leading off today, and it was impressive. The center fielder as well, Ciani, who was, I don't think I've ever seen Ciani play before. So, like, this is the funny thing. When you haven't seen a team, up to this point in the year, you may be a little bit unfamiliar with some of the guys. And so you kind of, the main guys, but it's like probably the peripheral guys. It's like, who's kind of stepping up? What roles are they playing? You're looking around going, where's Jordan Walker gone? Like, oh yeah, he's in AAA now. Okay, Jordan Walker's gone. So what I'd say to the Cards, like, I think this lineup is better than I anticipated. I think there's more talent here offensively than maybe I'd thought. And actually, it's guys that are emerging that I think are maybe supplementing the core, maybe better than last year it wasn't good, obviously, but it feels to me like there's the top and tail of the core, I think, is in a lot better spot at this point for the Cardinals. Give them a little bit more kind of flexibility, more speed, and they're chipping in with power as well. So, I like the balance, I would say, of this Cardinals lineup. It looks dangerous. Frank, we have to call out Yonny Chirinos was pitching today as his debut for the Marlins. There was definitely a few meatballs tossed. Rodri Munoz went yesterday. There was definitely a few meatballs tossed from Rodri. So, we have to take some of this with a pinch of salt. But overall, offensively, I was pretty impressed with the Cardinals. I think they look like a nice balanced lineup. And there's guys, I think, waiting in the wings, clearly, in maybe AAA and the minor leagues that can contribute when required. So, that's how I'm seeing it. Listen, I haven't got my finger on the pulse of Cardinals Nation at this point. Like, how are the Cardinals viewing the offense at this point? Is it aligned, or am I just way off? And this series is a bit of a
actually, you're pretty spot on. They score 7 in the first game, you get 8 in the second, and that's a lot of runs for the Cardinals this year because they've underperformed a lot. Arenado and Goldie having some down years, but it's been the other guys that have been able to step up recently that have helped this team start to put a little more production, which is why you're seeing a lot more wins. The pitching staff has been pretty darn solid for most of the year. But the offense scoring 8 in game 2 and not winning, that's a tough one. We're not used to seeing that. We're used to seeing 1-run games, though. This is something that the Cardinals have done a lot of so far this year. 3 of them. So to have a 7-6, 9-8, and a 3-2 finish is not shocking whatsoever in these games. 4-3 today. Sorry, 4-3 was the final today. So it doesn't surprise me whatsoever that happened. It's just so happened that the Marlins were able to come out on top this time. So happy for you guys, I guess we can say that. But I think we both know where these teams are. One of them is looking to progress and get towards a playoff spot this year. The Marlins, on the other side of things, going in a different direction. And I'm not sure if blowing the whole thing up is what is the best plan. But people are going to come calling. And we still don't know if Skip Schumaker is going to even be your manager next year. So I want to talk about Skip, and we'll talk about the trade deadline coming up next when we continue with this Locked On Cardinals and Locked On Marlins crossover. Life insurance is an important safety net for you and your family. The last thing you want is for something to happen to you or a loved one, and for you not to be prepared. Now, Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace, and it makes choosing the right policy for your family. It makes it easy. It makes it quick. We know time is precious, right? We're all trying to squeeze in a million things every single day, and that's why Policygenius made sure that they are convenient and that they're time-saving. Policygenius will help you easily compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. They've got award-winning agents that can just walk you through the process step by step. Let's be honest, we're not all up to date on everything going on with insurance. That's what their job is, and that's why you need some help and you want to talk to a real person, and their award-winning agents can help you with that. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid those unnecessary medical exams. Your work life insurance policy, it may not offer enough protection for your family's needs, and it may not come with you if you end up having to switch jobs, which is something that happens a lot these days. We're all kind of bouncing around doing everything we can. And Policygenius, they've got no incentive to recommend one insurer over another. They don't get handouts if they give some to somebody and not one to another person. So you can trust their guidance. They're in it for you, not for themselves. They have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs, and you can too. So get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance with Policygenius. Just head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. Here on Locked on Cardinals and Locked on Marlins, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, the playoffs, trade deadline, which we're going to talk with Peter about here in just a moment. But it's year-round. And you know what else is year-round? Collection season, unfortunately. Just because tax season has ended, it doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. Now, the IRS can garnish your wages. They can levy your bank accounts and even seize your property. So don't let the IRS target you. What you do is you get the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA. Go to bat for you. I've got a dozen different jobs going on right now, like broadcasting jobs with baseball and hockey, and we've got podcasts and we've got radio, and it makes things a little bit more complicated than most people's normal tax time. Different tax forms, different brackets, federal, state, like very confusing. So why not use the tax experts who have over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau? Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debts. Whether you owe taxes, whether you've got those complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, just call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. You can check out the link in this episode description down below and in the show notes. So why wait and keep stressing over it all? Not smart. Reduce your tax debt. Get help from a team of licensed tax professionals by calling 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked on. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows, which cover every league. You can find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. The one and only Peter Pratt from Locked On Marlins. JD Hafford from Locked On Cardinals. We're doing our Locked On Marlins, Locked On Cardinals recap, crossover, if you will. So where do we go from here? That is the question. Peter mentioned that we're in the back end of June now. So the trade deadline is inching closer and closer. I keep warning people, it's going to catch up to us real quick. Like all of a sudden it's going to be here and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to start panicking because you mentioned you've got the third wild card spot, which keeps a lot more teams hanging around, thinking they still got a chance. And that's going to make things a little more interesting at the trade deadline this year. Because some teams, even though they're only a game or two under 500, might end up deciding, you know what, we're going to have to punt. We don't think we got what it takes. And they're going to jump on the bandwagon of trading people away. Unfortunately for you, Peter, and the Marlins, they're already there. The Miami played their cards early when they traded Luis Ariz, which came as a shock to a lot of us when they shipped him over to the Padres. There's a lot of talent on the Miami Marlins. You saw it in this series this week, in this last 3-game series against the Cardinals, and it's a lot of young talent. And I'm curious as to what the Marlins are going to do when this trade deadline gets closer and people start calling, because they have so much, yet with injuries and such this year, there hasn't been a complete team. So I don't know if they really know what they have. To blow it up seems, I don't know, it seems a little much to me. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of activity. I think I'm expecting a lot of activity, but I'm expecting it in the areas that you normally see. You look at expiring contracts and relievers, right? Like I think that's nailed on. I think the Marlins have got one of the best relievers available in Tanner Scott. We saw him a lot this series. Like Tanner Scott,
He pitched in all 3 games. That's unheard of these days.
He's just a machine, Tanner Scott. He had a 6-out save the other day, and he just wants to keep throwing. That guy. He's just like a machine. He's an animal, to be honest with you. And I mean, he'd be a great fit on anyone's roster, to be honest with you. But you look at your expiring contracts, you look at your relievers. It's nailed on. I think the really interesting bit is, what do they do with some of these starting pitchers that have control? I think that will be the question. A Trevor Rogers, an Edward Cabrera, a Jesus Luzardo. Like, what do they do in that space? Equally, from an offensive side, you have a Jazz Chisholm Jr., for example, that will he draw significant interest? He's definitely on an upward curve at the moment. No, he's scratched from today's game. So for me, this deadline I spoke about on my show yesterday, for me, this deadline will really define the Peter Bendix era, in my opinion. Like, the work that he puts in now, I think will lead to ideally a competitive roster in 26. I think 25 is still going to be a wash for the Marlins, to be honest with you. I think they're going to be poor this year. Obviously, they are poor this year. I think they'll be the same next year. The earliest possible window is 26. And so what can Bendix do with this deadline to support 26? That's where my head's at. But you look at the system, as always with the Marlins, there's some pitchers there. They're polishing up some other rough diamonds like Ryan Weathers. And you have to look at the system and go, how do you inject some offensive talent into this organization? For me, that's the task right now for Peter Bendix. And that's where I think there's an interesting fit here between our organizations in some way.
Yeah, so a lot of people have pointed out that the Cardinals, we mentioned Lance Lynn is not that great. And then Steven Matz, who was supposed to be the number 5 for them this year, has always had injury history. He's out right now and was dealing with the back stuff, has been rehabbing, and then had a bit of a setback. So we're not sure what his status is at the very moment on how quickly he's going to come back. And it's just, there's just not a lot of depth. They're at a spot, the Cardinals are, where they went out and made a bunch of trades last year at the deadline, sellers for the first time in a long time. And they were able to acquire some depth for the organization pitching-wise, but that depth wasn't like AAA ready depth. It was guys who were A, AA, sort of. Like, they weren't ready. They were still at least another year away. So that's kind of the issue with the Cardinals, is with these guys going down, these guys that they just traded for that they're hoping will be something for them at some point, they're not ready yet. And the guys that they thought might be ready, like a Zach Thompson, or the guy who got the start today, Matthew Liberatore, who after the 2 home runs looked great in the game today, but he's been better as relief pitcher. So there's not that depth of starting pitchers that the team needs. It's not just the Cardinals, and any team needs. You got to have backups for your backups at this point. The Marlins have a couple of guys, as you mentioned. Jesus Luzardo is somebody that a lot of people are going to be chasing. What kind of haul do you think the Marlins can get for a guy who's under control? He's still young and he's left-handed. And last year, I know he's had a bit of a down year this year, but last year showed some elite strikeout stuff. Yeah,
I mean, I think they're targeting quality over quantity, I'd say, with Jesus Luzardo. I think is the plan. I think they're going to look to get a almost nailed on guy, major league guy, like near ready was kind of the profile. It feels like they got close with a deal with the Orioles that didn't end up happening. They ended up pivoting and taking on Burns instead. So I think with Luzardo, it's not going to be, let's just take 6 dudes and just hope one of them turns into something. I think there's going to be a headliner in there, and a significant headliner, which makes sense for a guy that's so young, shown what he's shown. I think that has to be the approach with Luzardo. I think some of the others may be a little bit different, but yeah, I think you're going to be looking for a real, a top 50 type dude in there, or someone with that kind of projected potential. I mean, rankings are rankings. It doesn't really matter what the rankings are. It matters how people analyze the talent. But I think they're looking for a impact dude, and particularly on the hitting side, I think.
Yeah, and this is great to hear, because Cardinal fans are always they always want to get rid of the garbage and get in the stars from other teams, and I'm like, it's just not how it works, guys. Like, you can't give them like your cast-offs. Like, you're not trading Brandon Crawford and your 20th prospect, you'll get a Jesus Luzardo. There's going to be a lot of competition for a guy like him. Edward Cabrera is a guy that I've always kind of had a little bit of an infatuation with, probably because he's so good on MLB The Show, the video game. So that's probably where it started. But he's got elite strikeout potential. He walks a lot of guys too, but he's somebody that I feel like if you could polish him up, like he could be something special at some part of his career as well. But the Marlins got something going for him this year, where you've got a Sandy Alcantara and you've got a Yuri Perez. Yeah, they're gone this year because of injuries, but they're coming back, and those are two. And yeah, we know injuries, sometimes people don't bounce back from them, but this day and age, you kind of expect them to. And those are two like top guns where if you end up trading a couple of these pitchers from your rotation that are available now, you're not emptying out the cupboard. Like, you still got a couple of these guns who are coming back with you guys next year, or as you mentioned, in 2026, if they're really going to go for it again. The question is, will Skip Schumaker be around to be a part of that? Because as we mentioned, he's up after this year, had an option removed from the contract. So do you believe Skip Schumaker is the right guy for this team moving forward? Or do you think at the end of this year that they will part ways and move on to somebody new?
I absolutely love Skip Schumaker, by the way. I think he is an absolutely world-class manager. And I'd put him up there with anyone in the game right now. He is top draw. He's new still, but he's learning, but he's right up there. He'd be an asset for any organization. The sense I get is he won't be back with the Marlins. The organization has pivoted in terms of their approach. He was very close to Kim Ang. Kim Ang brought him in. As soon as Kim Ang moved, that was the rationale for having this option year removed, the team option over the Skip. And so my sense is, considering they waved the white flag early, they're looking to trade more guys. They're probably not going to be great in 25. It's not an optimal landing spot for Skip Schumaker at this point. I think he's going to be looking for something different. And I know we talked about trade situations, but I mean, I can absolutely see Skip managing the Cardinals next year. I can absolutely see that. I can see him managing on the West Coast as well. Like, I know he misses his family, and I know he'd like to be probably closer to his kids, and he's very involved when he's around. So again, West Coast is an option, but equally, like, clearly there's a Cardinals link. I think it'd be a huge asset for the Cardinals. All the Marlins fans will deeply miss Skip Schumaker, but I think we've resigned ourselves to the situation that Skip won't be back.
Yeah, and the Cardinals just locked up Ollie Marmol to an extension, which surprised a lot of people in spring training.
Surprised me. Yeah, surprised me, actually, that one.
Especially after such a tough year and the way things went, it just got ugly, and they lock him up anyway to kind of give him, like, you're cool, you're fine, you're our guy, and then Skip becomes available, and you're like,
he's available.
did we screw up there? I don't know. Yeah. I know a lot of Cardinals fans will be more than happy to kick Ollie to the curb and let Skip take over if the Cardinals decided to go in that direction. I just would find it shocking that they would turn their back on Ollie after just giving him the extension, and that, our president of baseball operations, John Mozeliak's still in that chair until the end of 25. So that's his guy. So it'd be shocking to me to see it happen, but I was shocked to see the extension. So, and you never know what you got to get sometimes. So anyhow, we're going to lock things up here on Locked On Cardinals and Locked On Marlins. We appreciate you guys for being a part of the show today. Where are you guys off to next, Peter? What's up on tap for the Marlins?
We got an off day, actually, which is perfect with this bullpen that's been overtaxed. And I think the Mariners are in town, so that should be a challenge for the Marlins, no doubt.
Hey, you get to see Julio Rodriguez. That's he's always fun. Yeah, Mariners are very, very good this year, having a good time out there in the AL West. All right, Cardinals have that special game in Alabama. We're going to Rickwood for that special game. Sad news about Willie Mays passing away on Tuesday, and this was kind of like a celebration of him as well, and for him to pass away right before it happens, very, very sad. But I'm sure we'll have some emotional tributes and stuff going on against the Giants at Rickwood on Thursday. So that's what's on tap for the Cardinals and the Marlins. Again, thank you guys for hanging out with us and making Locked On Cardinals and Locked On Marlins your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Twitter, X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. For Peter, you can find him at Miami Marlins _UK. And make sure you guys are liking and subscribing on our YouTube channels and help our love and our passion for the Marlins and the Cardinals continue to grow. Peter, thank you for being a part of this today, and we hope to talk to you down the road. Okay, buddy?
Same to you, JD.
All right. We'll see you guys next time on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.